Hello and welcome to Trash to Track. In this episode we're going to be looking at this double-ended electric loco from Triang, which you can see posed here on the seawall at Sheringham. And I picked this up from Smith's Model Railways of Sheringham for the pricey sum of a £10 non-runner, and whilst at a cafe posed it on the seawall with the beautiful August weather behind it. But now we're in the depths of, well, the beginning of November actually. So let's have a look. I've got it out of storage and see if we can restore this loco to running order. You can see there, non-runner, £10. The left-hand pantograph is broken. The switch on the roof seems to work okay, and luckily this pantograph seems okay, although this one is probably beyond repair. Now, looking in Pat Hammond's Triang Volume 1, the history of, the story of Rovex, we find this model, and the description is here. The green without the Triang was released in 1962. So this puts this model at 63 years old, and there you can see a picture of it in the book. So this has to be one of the oldest models I've ever worked on. Now, applying battery, the lights work, but there's no sign of any movement. So it is indeed a non-runner. However, when you moved the model about, even just wiggling it like this, there were sparks coming from under the wheels. So I think there's something shorting the motor terminals out. And when I turn the model upside down, it becomes apparent that there is a raft of iron filings all over the bottom of this model. And you can see there the wheels are coated in a black dirt. Now these wheels should be serrated, and in fact they are smooth with dirt. So we're going to have to strip this down and see if we can restore it to running order. Now I know these are slightly crude for their age, but I do like the look of these locomotives. So I'm going to strip it down. Now to remove the roof there are 4 screws, 2 at each end. And the roof will lift off, but the pantographs actually work, so they are linked with wires. So as soon as the roof comes off you can see the wiring loom. But it does allow access to the screw that holds the power bogie in place. So we're going to undo that, and then we're going to drop the power bogie out and see if we can get rid of all those horrible iron filings and clear all the dirt off it. This model's clearly got some mileage on it to accumulate dirt like that. So the wires luckily inside this model are all colour coded, brown for pickup, red and black for the lights, and also red for the pickup wire. And everything is soldered together, so for ease of use I'm going to snip through the wires, and then when I come to reassemble it I've just got to join the correct coloured wires together. Now Triang purists should look away, because I am going to restore this, or attempt to restore it, but any Triang collectors thinking this is worth a lot of money should probably look away or turn off now. The armature's turning freely, but it's these iron filings that are really concerning me. And they are everywhere. It looks like somebody's tried to clean this with an old Brillo pad or something, and they're all stuck to the magnet. So getting a powerful magnet, I hold it underneath, and this does pull a lot off the bottom. You can see them all stuck on there. So just rubbing this across the surfaces of the model, or the underside of that bogie, does pull a lot of them off. But I'm going to have to strip it down because there's a lot inside the bogie frame, and it's only going to take one thin strand of those to cause a short circuit. So the first thing I'm going to do is release these 2 screws underneath, which will remove the pickup base plate and the wheels. And once this is done, the wheels should just drop out, and we'll clean those up later on. And because I snipped that wire, it does come away in its entirety, which is good. And there are the wheels, so I can work on this with relative ease. I'm also going to remove the front coupling because that's got surface rust on it. Again, look, more iron filings. I was going to say, I'm also going to remove the front coupling and polish off the surface rust. To remove the magnet housing, you remove this screw. The wire also goes in there on a clip. And the magnet, surprisingly on this model, is very, very strong, considering its age. Now what I tend to do with these models, I always draw something along the top between the pole pieces and the magnet, so that I know that when I come to put this back together, I'm going to put it back in the correct way. Now, people might, well, why don't you just use a compass? Well, because this doesn't need remagnetising at the moment, I'm just going to do that, and I'll match the lines up when I come to reassemble it later on. So removing the magnet removes the brush retaining plate. But to remove the armature, you have to remove these spring clips at the end that hold the bearings in place, because the armature actually passes through the die casting at each end of the bogie. So removing this spring metal plate allows me to remove the bearing pad, the oil pad and the bearing. The armature goes forward and then drops out just like that. Now it doesn't seem to be in too bad a condition. A few iron filings around it, and then those supports come off. But everything needs cleaning, and I've stripped that down in relatively short time. Now there should be a ball bearing in the end of each of those bearing cups, which there is. And then using this stiff paintbrush, I brush the bogie frame and get as much of those iron filings off as I can. And I'm pleased to say that most of them, now the magnet's gone, most of them just fall off anyway. And as I said, just to remove the front coupling, just undo the screw and the coupling will come away. The buffer cowl or the front cowling on the bogie there can stay in place. That is just a plastic fitting, but there's no need to remove it during this rebuild. So now I can look at tidying everything up and getting everything back to how it was. And even though I'd cleaned it all, there's still iron filings all over these metal parts. So I give them a wipe with some blue cloth and pull as much of it off as I possibly can. So once I'm satisfied that everything is as clean as it can be and all the metal filings are gone, I clean the commutator with a cotton bud and some contact cleaner. Initially it was working, but there was quite a bit of tarnish on this. So after I'd given it a clean with the cotton bud, I then got the fiberglass pencil and gently polished the commutator faceplates up until they were shining, until the brass was shining nicely. And if you ever clean the commutators like this, make sure that using a cocktail stick, because wood won't damage the brass. I shave a cocktail stick down, and it's important to clean the gaps out. The bridging of the gaps or build-up of carbon in these gaps can cause short circuits and poor running. So make sure you clean them out if you ever attempt this on an armature, or any armature. The gaps need to be clean. The brushes were put on some blue roll and given a coating of contact cleaner because there was a little bit of green corrosion on them. The contact cleaner did clean them up okay. It got the carbon build-up, etc., off the brush plates themselves. But the actual brushes, where the green corrosion was, I ended up dunking a cotton bud in some Brasso and polishing the brushes up so that they were nice and clean, because the contact cleaner didn't remove the green corrosion. So that's what I'm doing here with a cotton bud and some Brasso, just polishing the brush parts up. I also give the brush plate a good clean because this had a lot of dirt on it. Remember, this model's over 60 years old, and I don't know if it's ever been serviced before, but it could be 60-year-old dirt we're cleaning off here. The brushes did look in good order, even so they may have been changed in the past, because the amount of dirt on the wheels, it wouldn't surprise me if they have been changed. Now, before reassembly, I do put a tiny amount of grease and a small tiny spot of oil on the ball bearing that's in there. Now, somebody commented the other day that you shouldn't mix oil and grease. Well, that's nonsense. I've done it for years, and other repairers do it. The oil just thins the grease a little bit, and it will allow this armature to spin lovely and freely. I've reassembled the brush plate, put the brushes and the springs back in. Not after the spring flung off across the workshop though, and I spent half an hour looking for it. I've resorted to putting a magnet on the floor to pick it up. But the brush terminals, the magnet terminals and the magnet housing all go back on. And then it's time to put the bearing and the felt pad back on. Now, you'll see that the felt pad's already doused in oil. That's because when I initially rebuilt this, I did it wrong and put the brush plate towards the front. The brush plate goes towards the rear of the bogie. I did it backwards and then had to redo it, which isn't uncommon with me, if I'm honest. But then once the bearing's in place, this sprung piece of metal is then manipulated around the die cast to hold the bearings in place and the armature end. And it should just snap into place with gentle pressure. If you ever take one of these off, do ensure you don't bend it out of shape. The armature is now spinning lovely and freely, so I can now put the magnet housing back on. Now, when I did this initially, I forgot to put that wire terminal through, but testing it, you can see the armature spinning. Just testing it with some leads to the brush terminals, and the armature spinning nicely. So this is a working motor. We've just got to rebuild the wheels and connect all the wires back up. So everything looks to be good. I'm just making sure there's no stray iron filings anywhere, which there aren't. Now to clean the wheels I use a brass brush and a Dremel. You always wear glasses if you do this because the brass parts on the brush can fly off. Now I only ever clean older wheels like this because they're they are made of proper steel, whereas newer wheels are coated. And cleaning this up, it gave it a lovely golden sheen and the serrations in the wheel returned. And you can see I'm just working progressively there, and it does remove that horrible buildup of dirt and reveals the serrations on the wheels which have been hidden probably for many years. So I give all the wheels a good clean up, working gently, not pressing too hard, but eventually they all clean up nicely. And you can see there are the serrations, and all the dirt, all the visible dirt should I say, has been removed from the wheels. I also polish up and remove any surface rust from the couplings, because these did have a little bit of surface rust on them. Again, holding the coupling in a pair of pliers, smooth nose pliers, just working gently all over the surfaces to remove any rust. And again, with the glasses on, it is imperative if you do this, do wear glasses. And then I did actually give the plastic wheels a quick and gentle spin with the brass brush. Very, very gently so as to not to melt the plastic, but these had a bit of dirt build up. A few spins underneath that brass brush and they cleaned up rather nicely actually. It was better than trying to scrape it all off with a screwdriver. But even though they look clean, a cotton bud dipped in contact cleaner, and you'll see here they needed a wipe because there was quite a lot of residual dirt left on them. Just look at that, they looked clean. But now I've cleaned them with some contact cleaner. They are properly clean. And the axles and gear were given a spray as well on some blue cloth. Wiped over with a cotton bud, and then it was left to evaporate to make sure these wheels were as clean as they can be, because they pick up wheels from the tyre treads and transfer it to the motor bogie through the axle. So when you reassemble the wheels into the bogie frame, as I'm going to do in a second, you need to ensure that the insulated wheels, the ones with the black sleeve, go to the side where the pickup is, and the pickup side is denoted by that cutout in the die-cast chassis. Small bit of pico electrolube. I'm just checking there to make sure the wheels are in the correct way, which without checking I got them right first time, which is a first. But a small bit of pico electrolube, I'm running out of this stuff, on the axles. This is conductive lubricant and it will help the transfer of current between the axles and the die-cast bogie frame, which acts as one of the pickup points. Pickup piece is back on. I have cleaned the pickups and reshaped them. I did that off camera. But these were cleaned as well. All the iron filings removed and the dirt. And then using a cocktail stick, I just manipulate the pickups to the wheel backs. And then the two screws we removed earlier can be put back in place. And then in theory, once this is wired up, this motor should run nicely. There we go, just screwing that in there. The last thing to do, and the last thing I'm going to do on this bogie, is to add a small amount of grease to the worm gears, because all the gears on this model are brass, so it will need plenty of lubrication. And once I put that on the worm gear, I turn it by hand and just spread the gear lubrication through the drivetrain. Now I'm going to turn my attention to these pantographs. This one here needs a clean up and possibly a lubrication, but the one on the left is completely had it. I did try and look at restoring it, but it was to no avail. I am going to remove the pantographs for now. So the first thing I do is unsolder the white wire, and then the pantographs are held in by tabs, which with gentle pressure will bend upwards without snapping, and this will allow you to remove the pantograph from the model. So once all four have been folded up, again, like I said, just be gentle because you don't want to snap any of the legs off the pantographs. Careful manipulation and they will pull out of the holes on the roof. And I'm glad I did this because underneath this one, as you'll see in a moment, was an awful lot of rust, dust, and just dirt that's accumulated over the past 60 odd years. So by removing the pantograph, gently does it, allows me access, and then with a stiff paintbrush, the roof was able to be cleaned. So to be honest, in all honesty, apart from that broken pantograph, this model is in good condition, considering its age. Now we'll strip the broken pantograph down, remove the pins. I was going to replace them with normal pins, because that's all they are. They are pins with a squashed end. And if I could have repaired this pantograph, I would have done. But despite cleaning the metal up and trying, it would not solder. It would take solder, but it just wouldn't join, not even with brass rod. So I was a little bit gutted about that. It just wouldn't work. And I did contact a few trying collectors and Dave Angel trains and trying specialists, and they said that the pantographs are like rocking horse droppings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit this lemur pantograph on the base, just as a temporary measure. Now I removed all the triang gubbings off the base of the pantograph and flattened it out and refitted it to the model, and this lemur offering will simply be glued on the top, just so that there's not anything missing off the roof of the model. And to be quite honest, this modern looking pantograph, it does look good. This pantograph cleaned up okay. I did remove the majority of the surface rust again with the Dremel, but very, very gently. I didn't want to break it. And then to refit the pantograph, one of the holes on the roof is slightly wider than the other three, which is this one, and that is the leg where the wire goes through. And because it had some residual solder on it, this allowed me to put the pantograph back in the correct way. So once the pantograph was in, the wires were resoldered and the legs bent back round. This wire here, I will just truncate there, and then if I do eventually find another pantograph which is working, I will replace it. But as we stand at the moment, and because of the sheer rarity or indeed expense of the pantographs, because there's one on eBay for 30 odd quid which I'm not paying, we'll wait and see. So I've reconnected all the wires now, brown to brown, red to red, and insulated them with some colour-coded heat shrink. And it's now time to put the screw back in, and we'll test this model to see if we've resurrected this non-running £10 model from Smith's Models of Sheringham back into a working loco. The only other thing I did was just to take the surface rust off the roof screws, because there was a bit on all of the tops of the screws that hold the roof in. So I did all four just to get rid of it, and then the screws are replaced. I haven't glued that lemur pantograph on yet. To glue it on, all I did was put a couple of drops of Loctite super glue on. And to be quite honest, I really do like the look of the more modern pantographs. But the actual trying one works, so I will endeavour to replace it with a like for like. The only other thing I did with the Triang original pantograph was give it a good coating of this light oil on all of the joints to prevent any further rust or build-up or seizing in the future. After filming the running session, this model will be a shelf display piece. It will get the occasional run when I get the Triang train set out, but it will be mainly a display piece. So I'm just putting some light oil all over the moving parts so that as it sits there, it won't corrode again like it has done over the past 60 years. And that is the use of the very light oil, and that, there we go, I'll just spring that up and down. It's working better now just by having some oil fitted. So initially I put it on the bench to battery test it, and there we go, it's running back and forward. But it soon became apparent this wasn't enough while I was in the workshop, so I set up a couple of lengths of track, pantograph raised, and there we go. And it is a lovely, smooth, quiet and powerful runner. It really did surprise me how quiet, in comparison to other Triang models, that this double-ended electric really is. So I really like this model. I'm so pleased I managed to find it for 10 quid. I do like the look of the more modern pantograph on the roof, but it just looks impressive. It may not be based on any generic prototype, but I just like the Triang models from this age. And to restore this from a £10 non-runner covered in iron filings to what we see here, I think we've done a good job. I especially like the rivets that are on the body side that act as porthole windows. That's quite a good bit of innovation at the time from Triang. So I took it inside and set the Freightmaster train setup that we did a couple of years ago now, and gave the double-ended electric a good run round. And you can see here that it is lovely and powerful and fast, and it's a good looking model. And I spent an hour or so playing with this on the track on the dining room table, just to prove the naysayers that say I only run it in one direction. There we go, it's running in reverse. Now, one thing I do like about this model is the switch on the roof allows you to put it in the middle setting, which I assume is neutral, and that isolates the loco. So if you had a few of these on a shed scene, you could end up running another engine up behind it, and they're self-isolating. Although bizarrely, when I flick this to run, the 31 and the double-ended electric are wired opposite ways, and I'm not entirely sure why, because they were put together exactly as they were taken apart. If you've got an engine or anything you'd like to see repaired, featured on the channel, DCC fitted, drop me an email, dansmodelrailways@gmail.com. Have a look and get it sent over, and who knows, it may even feature in an episode all of its own. I hope you'll agree we've done a good job of repairing this veteran engine of over 60 years, and I hope you've enjoyed watching Trash to Track again. So it's running around now with the stock from the Freightmaster set. A bit incongruous, I know, but I haven't got any Triang Continental coaches to run with this. Well, not at the moment anyway, but I've got my eye out on some. So all that's left to be said is thanks again for watching Trash to Track. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye for now.
Yeah.